What's up? It's Sad Zilla with Zilla Mode, and today's episode is going to be kind of inspired by a last video that I put out that you guys really responded well to. And it had to do with how much money I make doing music and what the real cost of that is. And the cost has to do with my schedule, the things that the work that I put into music, and it all has to do with releasing weekly. For you, it could be releasing bi-weekly. For some other people, it could be releasing monthly. The main thing is consistency and keeping up with the work, right? So what I want to do today is I want to dive into what I do to kind of make that happen, because a lot of people are like, how do you put out so much music? How do you keep up with everything that's going on? And so I'm going to give you guys like 3 tips on how you can do that, how I personally do it, and yeah, let's get into it. Before I get into the 3 steps that I want to talk about today, the first thing I want to talk about is why we should be consistent. The reason we should be consistent is because Spotify is looking for consistency. If we're just talking about straight Spotify, it needs consistency. It does not need you to be releasing 6 different genres when you first start, okay? It does not need you to be putting yourself on 6 diverse playlists with all different kinds of genres on it. It does not need you to release 1 week and then wait 3 months and release another song, and then the next week you release another song. It's that inconsistency that doesn't send the right signals to Spotify. Spotify needs to know 3 things: who you are and your music is, who's listening to your music, and who else will listen to your music, okay? So it can't skip to step 3 before it gets to step 2. It can't skip to step 2 before it gets to step 1. First, it needs to know what your music is, okay? Then it determines who your listeners are, okay? If you make metal music and you're sending your songs to a Taylor Swift fan, they're not probably not going to like that song. They're not going to listen to it again. Stop sending your music to those people. Find your communities that will actually listen to that same style of music. That's where you find, or Spotify finds out who the listeners are, right? And then from that data, a lot of that data, then it can send that information to the next step, which is going to determine who it's going to send your music to. And that last step is the most important part. That's when it acknowledges your presence, where it acknowledges your existence, where it actually starts pushing your music to new people, and people discover your music all of a sudden, okay? That's where Discover Weekly pushes happen. That's where editorials happen. That's where huge release radar pushes happen. Is when Spotify acknowledges that, okay, we know exactly who you are, what your music is, who's listening to it, and who should listen to it also. And they're gonna send that stuff to everybody, right? And to find out this information and to send your music to new discoverable people, it needs consistency. It needs a lot of information, and you need to feed it that information. And it may be over 50 songs this year. It may be 24 songs in a year. It may be 12 songs in a year. It all matters on how many songs you put out, how consistent it is, and honestly, what you're doing to promote it. So now that we know kind of why we're doing this, let's get into what we should actually do. So the first thing is kind of a 2-parter. First, I need you to set a start date. So if your start date is in the next 3 months or 6 months, whatever time that you need to start, you need to have like a set date, okay? And that set date, you are going to start releasing weekly. You are going to start releasing bi-weekly or monthly. Whatever works for you and your creative output. For me, it's weekly. And you're probably like, how do you do that? Like, if I create a song, how am I going to release it the next week? And I got to create another song and release it that next week. But that's not how it works. Like I said, you got to set a start date. And so the reason that you set a start date so far in advance is because before that date starts, you're going to start creating music, okay? So let's say you're going to be releasing monthly. For an entire year, you need 12 songs. So before that 6 months hits, or whatever your deadline is, you need to make 12 songs, okay? If it is bi-weekly, you need 24 songs. If it is weekly, you need over 50 songs, okay? Now, you don't have to have those all up front, but I mean, just getting started, if you can get 12 songs, then you have the next, 3 months taken care of. If you can create 24 songs, then you have the next 6 months taken care of, right? So you want to get a head start on everything. You want to have something in the bag so that you can start putting stuff out. And what I do is I actually start scheduling those out ahead of time. So let's say I finish a song, I get some cover art done, I schedule it for that start date 6 months down the road, 3 months down the road, 12 months down the road, whatever your start date is. I start setting those release dates. And once you start setting those release dates, I'm telling you, believe me, it becomes addicting. You're gonna want to see that huge list of things that are to come, right? Because it's exciting. You are getting excited about knowing that you're gonna be releasing all this great music that you're excited about. So that's definitely the first step. This first step, like I said, is to get songs done, okay? And set that start date far in advance so that you can have everything done, and it'll relieve a lot of stress off your shoulders, trust me. Now, number 2 has to do with setting a plan. Now, we've kind of already set the plan because we already have a start date, right? But this has to do with something a little bit more complicated, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to get like maybe a whiteboard or a chalkboard or a journal, something to put your notes into. What I use personally is on my phone. It's Google Docs. Google Docs works very well because if you need to share that with somebody else, they can get access to it and they can edit it. I don't know how much you would do that for this particular situation. I've done it before with another artist where I've also had them join in on this process, but whatever works for you works great. If you want to use a whiteboard, if you want to use a chalkboard, if you want to use a journal, you go ahead. We're going to use these things to set up our releases. So like I said, you know, once you start setting these release dates, it becomes very addicting. And the addicting parts comes to when you're writing that stuff down, when you're typing it down into your documents or in your journal or whatever you're using. It becomes addicting because you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I got this coming, I got this coming, I got this coming, I got this coming. Sweet. I'm set. I'm ready to go, right? So the idea is to set a plan. You need to make and start a plan. Now, step 3 is kind of a tricky one. This is where the marketing comes into it, where the promotion cost and the plan comes into it. We're gonna use what we already have, which is the music, and we are going to take the documentation, right? We're gonna take those things and we are going to set a promotional budget for everything. We're gonna set promotional plans for everything. If you have a song that sounds like it's gonna do great on TikTok, go in that Google Doc, bring up that song, that you have scheduled or whatever with the release date, and start putting some notes down in there saying like, I'm going to do a TikTok campaign on playlist push, or I'm going to get a YouTube video made, maybe a music video, or I'm going to get on a YouTube promotion channel, or I'm going to get on this really big playlist that I know I can get onto, or I'm going to get a certain amount of pre-saves before the song hits or whatever. So you start setting plans on ways that you're going to promote these songs. So, if you're releasing weekly, I know it becomes like, how am I supposed to, plan promotion for something that is so close together, right? But really, it just takes practice and it takes experimentation. Like for me, I can get it done and do it effectively, but if that's not what you can do effectively, then maybe weekly isn't right for you right now. Maybe bi-weekly is right for you. So set those plans, figure out not only what songs I'm going to release and how many songs I'm going to release and how consistent it's going to be, but also how am I going to promote these songs? How am I going to actually push these songs? And over those 6 months, you can also start saving. If you have a promo budget that you want to start saving for, start saving it in that 6 months or 3 months or 12 months, however long you're waiting for your start date to happen. Like I said, overall, this is not hard to do. If you put it actually into small steps, it actually makes a lot of sense, and it's not that much work. A lot of the overthinking comes from our inconsistent minds thinking about consistency. Just calm down, take a breather. You got time. You got plenty of time. Start planning out your releases and, setting yourself up for success. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Zilla Mode. I hope you guys got a lot of value out of this. This is one of the things that I struggled with in the beginning as well. When I first started as an artist under a different name, I definitely was inconsistent. I was releasing a lot of stuff just haphazardly, and probably when you're watching this, you're probably doing the exact same thing. You don't really have a plan in mind. You're just like, the song's done, let's put it out at this time and whatever. And that's how usually people release stuff. But if you can be consistent and know exactly what your schedule is going to be, you can know exactly how many songs you have to release, and it can make things so much easier. The same thing can be said for Twitch streamers. Twitch streamers have to stick to some sort of schedule. That's how they grow as streamers, because people know when to expect them. So same thing with your listeners. Your listeners need to create a habit to know, okay, this guy releases a song every month. This is the first of the month, or this is the middle of the month. He should have another song. I'm gonna go check it out. Or if it's weekly, every single Friday, right? Or bi-weekly, what have you. So that's where the consistent part comes into play the most, is people know where to find you and when to listen to your music. So anyway, like I said, if you guys like these videos, click down below, click subscribe, click the bell icon down below as well. Don't forget to like the video, and comment down below and tell me, what is your plan? Are you going to do this? Are you already doing this? Let me know down in the comments, and if you guys have any questions that I can give insight on, definitely drop them down below. Maybe I'll even make a video on them. But anyway, that is it for me for this video. I am Zilla, and you just went into Zilla mode. Zilla out.